Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Zebu Nation Plays the FM Scout Academy Challenge with FC Dallas. And here we are with Season 9, the Preseason Spectacular. We're going to go through everything that we've done in the offseason. We're going to go through our preseason schedule and get everything set up and ready for us to get into the Champions League. Not this episode, but next episode we're going to look at our upcoming quarterfinal match against Sporting Kansas City in the North American Champions League. Now, if you're not familiar with the Academy Challenge, you're building a team using only academy players that have been grown up and built at your home academy. Now, we've got a little caveat here in that we've got the MLS Super Draft that we also utilize to bring players in, but it's pretty much all homegrown players used to build up a team to win your domestic league and, most importantly, win the Champions League. So you can take a look at our team history, again, just in case you're new to the program. We're doing pretty well. We've won the MLS Cup 3 straight years, 4 times overall in this challenge. So we won it 2018, 2021, 2022, and last year in 2023. We've also won the Supporters Shield 3 times, including last season and the season before. We won the U.S. Cup twice during this run, including 2 years ago. So we're doing very well in everything except the Champions League. The farthest we've made it in the Champions League is the semifinals, so that's our final hurdle to get over, is to win that dang old North American CONCACAF Champions League. So that's what we're doing. We're setting up the team, hopefully, to make a run. And this might be our best chance ever because we've got an MLS team in the quarterfinals. So hopefully we should be able to beat them and then move on. Maybe we could even get an MLS team in one of the next 2 rounds and sneak into that finals and maybe win the dang thing and end this challenge. But anyway, that's for later in the season. For right now, we're going to run down the old checklist because that's what we like to do. So here we go. We're going to start with finances. We have a pretty astounding $53.9 million in the bank. We're doing very, very well financially. And that's because when you play with academy players and young players a lot, it's a very frugal way to play the game. You know, you're not going out getting all these big money contracts and transfers and all that stuff. So we've got plenty of money in the bank. You can see our budget has just gone up and up and up all season. Now, last season we were forced to sell a couple of our big players, our best players, because their release clauses were met and we just had no choice. We had to get rid of them. So we lost 2 of our best players, but that gave us a lot of money in the transfer market. And strangely, the board took $10 million out of our transfer budget and gave it to our payroll budget, which we don't need because we have a monstrous payroll budget of $37 million, of which we're only using $5.9 million of it. So we didn't need that extra $10 million in the budget, but who can know these days what the board's going to do? They're going to do weird stuff and do whatever they want. But anyway, financially we're doing very well. We've already made $8 million this season. Last season we made $11.3 million, actually $19.27 million for tax purposes. But, still a very, very good profit last season. And this season we've already got $8.6 million. So that shows, we've done very well. We've got some new sponsorships. We've got, obviously, better television money and better season ticket sales. So we're doing all kinds of good things financially. So we'll take a look now at the board. I mentioned them earlier. And in case you're wondering who are our board members, it's just the Hunt family. It's just Dan Hunt and Clark Hunt. That's it. That's our board chairman and managing director. The famous Hunt family of American sports. Anyway, according to them, we are untouchable. Up here at, what is this, 70-something%? 77%. I like to see that starting out the year, in such high esteem. maybe we can get to that 100% mark. I thought we would get the 100% mark 2 years ago when we won the Triple Crown, but they're very stingy with their praise, so maybe we're breaking them down a little bit to start the season with so much praise is definitely a good thing. That's really about all we can say about the board. So let's take a look at our club. And we're still 3 stars. That's disappointing, because at the end of last season we had actually moved up to 3.5 stars, and I was getting ready to show everybody that proud half star that we had gained, but unfortunately we've dropped a half star again. I don't know why. Maybe, I have no idea, but we can take a look at the USA, the top teams in the USA. We are number 1 here. FC Dallas, followed by Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Sporting Kansas City. So, we're the top team in the USA, but I thought we had gained that half star to just put us that much more ahead of everybody else, to say, because right now we're tied at 3 stars with just about everybody in the MLS. If we could have gained that extra half star, it would have been very, very cool. I would have enjoyed that, because every year I come here and say, well, no changes, we're still 3 stars. But, oh well. Now we'll get to the interesting part of the offseason, the part that every coach loves to show off, loves to talk about, and that is their transfers. Yes, but in the MLS, it's a little bit different, because not only do we have transfers to talk about, but we have trades to talk about. So I'm going to look at these first, because trades, in this case, lead to our transfers, if that makes sense. You'll understand in a minute. So first of all, what we did and what we do quite a bit in the off season is we always trade for draft picks. I love hoarding draft picks. I love using the draft picks in the MLS Super Draft to get new players, because like I said, that's one of the ways we can get new players in this challenge is through the MLS Super Draft. So I try to get as many of those picks as possible. And so right at the end of the season, right after the MLS Cup, I traded away one of our reserve central defenders, Mike Eaton. He was kind of a popular player. I didn't realize, so the fans weren't real happy with this trade, but we traded him away for a second-round pick to Chicago. I probably shouldn't have done that, because he's still a pretty valuable player, but I have other young defenders that I wanted to get playing time, and that wasn't going to happen with Eaton on the team. So I saw a chance to get some value out of the guy, and I got a second-round pick from Chicago. And then likewise, we traded away our reserve goalkeeper, Manuel Suarez, to Colorado for a first-round pick. That was pretty good value right there. Again, I got some other young goalkeepers that I want to get involved, and he's a good player. He's a talented player, but he just I don't know, there's something about his performances that weren't that great. I mean, he held his own sometimes. Last year he got pretty decent playing time. He got 11 appearances. Still managed to give up 10 goals, even with 4 shutouts. So he basically gave up 10 goals in 7 games, which is a bit much. So not real happy about that. And I don't know. I just saw a chance to get value for the guy and might as well do it. I'm a sucker for trades. It's just, I don't know. One of the things I enjoy about sports games is making trades and wheeling and dealing and all that stuff. So when I have the opportunity to do it, I do it. And another thing I do quite often in this save is, because I'm using all these academy players and all these American players, I don't need the international slots that are available to MLS clubs. MLS clubs can only have a total of 8 international players, so players who aren't from the United States. So you get 8 of them, but they make those into slots that you can trade with other MLS clubs. So if you did have more than 8 international players on your team, you could trade and get some more from other teams like me who don't have any. I don't think I have maybe a couple, but certainly not 8. So I'm able to trade those international slots away every year. And this year I traded away I traded one away for 2 years to Toronto FC for a second round pick in 2025. Then I also traded one to San Jose for their pick, second round pick in 2025. That seems to be the market value for an international slot, is either like 150,000 in allocation money or a second round pick. I guess take your pick of those. So that set me up. I had a ton of draft picks, including the first pick overall in the draft, and I had a ton of second round picks. So I traded away my second round pick, which was the last pick in the second round, just because I didn't feel like I needed it. I had too many picks. So I traded that away to New England for their fourth round pick in 2026 and about $100,000 in allocation money. So that's, again, that's one of those things where it's like I probably shouldn't have done it and I didn't need to do it, but they offered me a trade and I traded just to trade. But draft day comes along, and during draft day, during the super draft, you can trade for picks. So when a pick comes up and there's a player on the board that you want, there's a little button at the bottom of the screen where you can click on it and you can start offering them to trade for their pick so that you can get that pick and pick up the guy that you wanted. So this year I wasn't messing around, because if you saw my preseason video last year, you know that the MLS Super Draft last year was pretty bereft of talent. There was almost no good guys to draft. So I traded away a lot of those picks from last season, and those wound up in this season's draft, which thankfully was a much more talented draft. It's not one of the most talented drafts I've ever seen, but there was at least some talent in this year's draft. So I didn't want to mess around. I had the first overall pick, but there were more players on the board that I wanted, that I needed. We're trying to make Champions League run here, so I need to stock up on the most talent I can get. So when it came to the second pick overall, I traded with Portland to get their second pick overall. Traded them the 13th pick in the draft, and I traded them back their own second pick in the second round, which I had got from them last year. That's how much trading I do, that I often trade teams back their own picks that I got from them in previous years. But that wasn't enough. San Jose had the third pick in the first round, and I wanted another guy there, so I traded them. But they got maybe even a little sweeter deal. They got the 17th pick in the first round. They got Vancouver's 7th pick in the second round. And then I traded them the Toronto's pick that I got up here from the international slot in 2025. I traded them that pick. So they got 3 picks, 3 for 1. Pretty good deal for them, but I got the third best player in the draft, so I was happy about that. Then after the draft was over, San Jose wanted to trade again, and they traded me back that Toronto's second round pick next year for another international slot. So I got that draft pick back for another international slot. I don't know if that was a dumb move or a smart move, but you can see how the draft picks just kind of fly around, especially when I'm involved wheeling and dealing. And that brings us to our transfers, which obviously we don't actually go out and get transfers. The only way we bring them in is through the Super Draft. And so that's what we've done right here. And our top 3 picks, those 3 picks that I traded for, they were Bill Hernandez, our number 1 pick. Not because he was the best player, but because he was the player that we needed the most. He is a left fullback. He's got the size, the athleticism, the jumping reach that I want in a fullback. I can't stand these little fullbacks that get beat on the back post, so I'm always looking for fullbacks with size, speed, athletic ability, so that they don't get beat physically on that back line. So I needed this guy. He had those stats, but he's also got some other interesting stats. He's got some good mental abilities. He's got 14 flair for a fullback. It'll be real interesting to see what he does with that. He's got decent technical skills. First touch finishing for a fullback. I like that in a fullback because I send my fullbacks forward on the attack quite a bit. So this guy, hopefully he can grow into a much, much better player. 21 years old, so we have to get him into the lineup pretty soon for him to start growing. But either way, we're going to get some use out of this guy. Then our next pick was actually Hunter Ruthven. He is a 21-year-old central defender. And he's another guy, very good physical skills, 17 strength, 15 jumping reach. Great teamwork, pretty good heading. He was just sort of the best available guy, and he's got very good potential. 3.5-star potential with possibly 4.5-star dark star potential. So by the end of his career, he could be a 4.5-star defender, which is, basically a all MLS type player. Then our third pick, the reason we went out and got that third pick from San Jose was because this guy was still on the board. Adam Sanfilippo, 20-year-old attacking midfielder. This guy is a beast. He's 6'5", 202 pounds. He's a huge attacking playmaker up front. 15 strength, 15 jumping reach. I mean, this guy, he brings the hurt when he comes running through that central midfield. And then he's got very good mental abilities here. 16 vision, 16 teamwork. 15 aggression, 14 decisions. I haven't seen a young player with these kind of mental stats in a while coming out of the Super Draft. So he's a very big player, very talented player. And then his technical stats are pretty decent as well. 15 first touch, 13 free kicks. Only 11 passing, but that can get better. And 14 technique. So, I just couldn't pass this guy up. He was still on the board. I just had to go get him. And that's one of the things I can do by hoarding all those draft picks. I can manipulate the draft however I want. This year, unfortunately, though, I couldn't get rid of some of my later picks, so I had to just pick guys in the later rounds, and I wasn't too happy about that. But, these guys could come in handy. I could at least maybe trade them away for future draft picks or other kind of assets. And one of those players is Peter Legit. I believe he was the last pick overall in the entire draft. He's a ball-winning defensive midfielder. Not the greatest player you've ever seen. Not a lot of potential. But I picked him up for a couple of reasons. Number one, he's got some decent mental stats. 17 bravery, 16 teamwork, 12 work rate. So he's gonna do okay in the central midfield or defensive midfielder. But the big reason I drafted this guy was because he's got 15 tackling and 13 technique. So he's at least got a major league skill, right? He can go out there, he can tackle, he can win the ball. So, at the very least, we can get some use out of him doing that, if nothing else. Then we got Timok Wright, 21-year-old, another central defender. 6'3", good strength, good athletic abilities, decent mental, decent technical, in terms of what you need as a central defender. You need heading, you need marking, you need tackling. He's got those three. And basically, you can find guys like this in every single MLS Super Draft. Big central defenders who can tackle, who can mark, and just be a good reserve kind of central defender. So we picked up that guy, Ruben Rodriguez. This is a weird pick for me because he's a left winger, and we don't use wingers. But he was the best available player. He's got 2.5-star potential. He's 21 years old. He was just kind of the best available player at the time, and I just picked him up just, for fun, essentially. Then Ian Carey, another central defender, another big guy, decent physical stats. He's basically the same as Timok Wright, just another one of those guys. But again, he's got pretty good value. He's already worth $575K, so maybe I can trade him away and get something from him. I don't know. We'll see. And then finally, David Malay, a goalkeeper, 21 years old. I needed another goalkeeper after letting Suarez go, so I decided to just draft this guy. And even if he doesn't pan out, he's all right. He's good enough to throw out on loan, keep him around on the bench just for emergency purposes. He's got good reflexes, good agility. Again, he's 6 foot tall, so he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's big enough. Pace and strength and handling. He's a decent young guy, and hope if he improves, then he might be worth something. If not, then it's not really any skin off of my nose. So that's about it. The only player we lost this offseason was Joe Velasquez, and we had a huge upgrade drafting Sanfilippo, who's going to be a major upgrade over Velasquez. So that's really just an improvement on our team from last season. And then everybody else, we just sent a bunch of those guys out on loan, and a bunch of other of our young players out on loan. So there we go. That's our off-season transfers, comings and goings, mostly having to do with the Super Draft. Okay, now let's take a look at our schedule, what we've done in the preseason. And we started off like we do most years with, first of all, a little preseason friendly versus a local team, this time our FC Dallas Juniors. We won that easily 3-0 just to kind of build some match fitness before our annual trip to South America. We did a little bit of a tour of South America here with 4 games. It didn't quite turn out as good as I would have hoped, but it was okay. First of all, we started off the tour pretty good, beating Atlético Nacional, a Colombian first division team. We beat them 2-0. And, that was a good way to start off the season, good way to start off the tour. But then we suffered a little bit. We had 2 defeats, 2-1 defeats, one versus Pasto and one versus Juana Reach. I think those were also Colombian teams, yeah. Pasto, Colombian, Juana Reach. No, Juana Reach was Peruvian first division. So, these are teams we probably should have beaten. It's just, I don't know, didn't play well. There's something about those games. We play all these games on the road, so maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe the travel. We play rotated squads also, but even our first team lost to Juana Reach, so I don't know what that was all about. And then we finished up the tour with a win over Zamora FC of Venezuela, a Premier Division team down there in Venezuela. So it's, okay to finish 2-2, I guess, in a tour like that. But I would have preferred to be rolling at this time and to really sweep those teams. Then we came back for a couple of games back on American soil. We beat Montreal 2-0. We beat another one of our teams that we play quite often, OKC Energy. Beat them 3-1, and that was a good victory for us. Then we came back and we had a kind of disappointing loss to Atlanta United. Another 2-1 score. Not happy about losing all these 2-1 games. And then that brought us to our final preseason game, which was a 2-1 victory over the Tulsa Roughnecks. Well, I guess it wasn't our final preseason game, but it was our last previous preseason game. However you want to say it, I don't know. Anyway, we beat them 2-1. They're another small local team, and that was our reserves who beat them. And now this game we're playing against Colorado. This is our final friendly warm-up for the Champions League, and I got a bit of a conundrum here. I'm not sure exactly what I want to do, because if you look at the calendar here, this game versus Colorado, we got 3.5 days basically until Sporting Kansas City. So do I want to play my starters here against Colorado just to make sure that everybody's match fit, everybody's in tune with our system and everything like that? Or do I want to make sure nobody gets hurt and everybody's fully fit for Sporting Kansas City? Let's take a look at our team here and decide. So, let's see. This is our second squad here that's in the lineup right now. So I might have to go with these guys and just make sure everybody's fit. Because you look at our match fitness here, we're all in the 90s percentile over here in terms of our starters. So that's pretty good going into any match. And we got some guys who aren't so match fit on our second team. So maybe I will go with the second team just to, just to make sure we go into the next game with no injuries. Although our second team did just play a game and they're a little tired. But I don't want to play a game and then have my first team look like this. So I think what I'll do is I'll start my second team, and then I'll bring my first team guys in liberally, or maybe I should do the opposite. Maybe I should do the opposite of that. Yeah, I think I will do the opposite of that. So luckily, I've got my quick picks all set up. So here we go. Boom, there goes the starters. Everybody's in there. Okay, let's get rid of defensive forward. We don't need that for Alcantara. Put him at complete forward. Make a couple of changes here. Washington needs to be the target man. Let's see, anything else? Oh, yeah, McCrecky, deep lying playmaker. And Guevara, ball-winning midfielder. Okay, everybody else should be just fine. So here's our starting lineup. It should be incredibly familiar if you watched any of our previous videos in the last season or two. So we have Oscar Sanchez at goal, Cole and Acosta back from injury at the fullback positions, and we have Valenzuela and Zimmerman at central defense, Van de Castile at defensive midfielder, Guevara, McCrecky, central midfield, Zamora, advanced playmakers. You can see he's up to 3.5 stars now, so he's definitely improved. Then we have our super strikers, Alcantara and Washington. We'll play these guys for the first half, and then we'll bring in our substitutes. I think that might be the best way to do it. Just to make sure everybody's match fit. Everybody gets their, it looks like Colorado. What are they going with? A 4-3-1-2. Interesting, almost like our diamond, but not quite. Take a look. Do we know anything about Colorado this season? Not much, really. Michael Gomez in goal. Some interesting players here, but we don't really know much about them, so let's just get to our own team selection. Just went through that, so we'll submit it. Going with a pretty basic formation, of course the diamond formation, and going with a pretty basic strategy, just standard strategy, and just trying to get our tactics in order and go with what everybody is most familiar with at this point in the season. Because one of the problems with playing Champions League this early in the year is that our guys aren't fully tactically fit. Even if they're physically fit and match fit, they might not be fully up on their tactics. Even though we did just play in the MLS Cup like a month ago, so you'd think they wouldn't forget it that easily. But you know, these soccer players, they lose their team chemistry after like a week. So alright, let's just get to the match here. Get everything going. Ooh, we got some sounds going on. I like having the sound on. I don't know. I haven't heard any complaints yet. If I do hear some complaints, I guess I'll turn the sound off. But I like hearing the match sounds. Now that I got my new recording set up so that it doesn't interfere with my voice, and it's turned down pretty low. You can't hear it too much, especially in a preseason game. I guess it doesn't add much to the atmosphere of a preseason game, but in the playoffs and in the MLS Cup, it's nice to hear that crowd roaring. Here's the first highlight of the game. Looks like Cole is getting harassed. Trying to find someone to pass it to McCrecky. Zamora gets it to Alcantara, to Washington. Out wide to Cole. Is Cole going to find some space? He does. Centers it to Washington, who gets the header. Nicely placed header in the far upper corner of the goal for his first goal. Washington, he's so big and so powerful in the center, as the target man. Look at that. He just goes up amidst 3 players and wins the ball. Nicely placed as well. I am still fighting off the effects of that cold that I had. So I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but I got a little bit of cold going on, but it's not too bad. It's not like it was before. Here's Washington again. Another well-placed shot. And there we are, 2 goals. It's going to be very easy to take these guys out at halftime. Take as many of the starters out as I can at halftime. Washington. Nice strike. Look at that. Boom. He loves hitting that upper right-hand corner, apparently. He hasn't done that much in his career, but if he starts placing his shots, I'll be very happy with that. Only 18 minutes down, and we're already up 2-0. So it looks like we're ready for Sporting Kansas City. That's what I really wanted. That's what I was really hoping for, was to build that match fitness and get these guys ready. Because if we can, I mean, I don't know if Colorado is playing a rotated side against us, but or maybe they're just not that good this season. They're not the greatest club in the MLS year in and year out. I mean, they have their spurts, but if we can beat them like this, then maybe we can take it out on Sporting Kansas City too and get to that next round of the Champions League. Van de Castile here with a pretty terrible free kick, if I'm honest. Got to check out those free kick takers and stuff like that, see who's going to be taking our specialty teams, because our specialty teams is still our weakness. Oh, there's a nice steal. Washington gets the ball to Zamora. Can he find Alcantara? No, he just places it in the upper right-hand corner. I think we've just found this guy's weakness here. You know, maybe we've done our homework and just said this guy can't reach the upper corner of the net. So there's Zamora flexing his offensive might. Look at that. He just a couple of touches. Central defense doesn't close down, and he just places the shot. Easy as pie right there. So there we go. There's halftime. 3-0. All right, let's get some of these players out of here. Go to our tactics. So I think we can definitely, let's see, who's irreplaceable here? Cole for sure. Valenzuela. We're gonna bring Johnson in for him. Let's see, we'll get McCrecky out. Yeah, we've got one of our surprise draft picks from last season. Tomas Calatiud. He's a very surprising character. He's got great size and physical attributes. I kind of glossed over this guy in last year's draft, but he's got 3.5-star potential, 22 years old. So he needs playing time, you know, free kick taking, passing, technique. So we need to get this guy more involved. So I'm going to bring him in for McCrecky. And I'm going to put him, he likes to play attacking central midfield, so we'll put him in there. Let's see, Zamora. We'll get him out for Gonzalez. Why not? And then, of course, get out our 2 strikers. We need those guys for sure. We'll make Manning the target man, and Sammy will be the advanced forward. He can't play complete. He can't play complete forward, so that's fine. All right, so that's all the. No, you know what? We'll sub out our goalkeeper as well, Sanchez, because we got 2 goalkeepers on the reserve on the bench. So we'll bring in another. I believe he was a rookie from 2 years ago as well. Another goalkeeper, 21-year-old American. Daniel Goldman. The Goldman is going to get in the game. He's another guy that we just need more match play for this guy, so he can improve a little bit. So here we go. Nice 3-0 lead taking into the second half. Looking good, looking strong. This is good news for our 9th season in the MLS. I mean, I don't know. Hopefully we can cut this off before 10 seasons. You know, let's say it took us 10 seasons to build a team up to a Champions League victory. I don't know if that's good amount or bad amount or an average amount. It seems like 10 seasons would be about the average, because at that point you'll have you'll have your players who are reaching the end of their career that you've grown up, and they'd be your veterans, your core of the team. Then you'd have at least one or two more crops of younger players who could be sort of your reserves and fill out your squad. So 10 seasons seems pretty reasonable for building a team up from the ground up as a academy built team. Here's Powers, sneaks one in past our young goalkeeper. Colorado crowd goes wild. Very enthusiastic crowd for a preseason game. They got a pretty good crowd there on hand. There's just sort of a late reaction by the young goalkeeper. Not great defending either. We are 66 minutes down. I think we can start or finish out our substitutions. Bring in Wang Yuwen. Bring in our new left fullback, Bill Hernandez, our #1 draft pick. Abdul Ghani at the defensive midfielder for Van de Castile. And goal down for Guevara. There we go. That's a fully rotated side. There's Wheat, gets it to Guevara, to Gonzalez. There's Manning open. He should have scored. Come on now. He's supposed to be one of the top young players in the entire country. Can't score like that. And you get the ball spoon-fed to you. There's our former man, Suarez, who we traded to Colorado. Scored 3 goals on him. I mean, I don't want to say I told you so, but when this guy gives up goals, he gives them up in bunches. So I guess I'm not too upset. Here's Gonzalez with a free kick off the post. Off the crossbar, I should say. All right, 75 minutes down. We're getting there. Just sort of running out the clock now, hopefully. Try to get out of here with no injuries, no suspensions. Even though that won't affect us for the Champions League. Here we go, Gonzalez with a corner. Manning chases it down. Gets it to Calatayud. Oh, almost gets a deflection in there. And here we go. 86 minutes down. White. However you say that. Maybe it's Wheat. I don't know. He gets it in there to Calatayud, who passes it off to Sammy. There's our #1 draft pick from last season. Scoring, the left-footed striker. Plants it in the back of the net. That was a nice pass from Calatayud. Just turns, spots the striker, and bam. Oh, he puts it in with his right foot, too. That's good. He's been improving that right foot of his. He's a guy who also places the ball pretty well when he strikes it. I think he's got 15 finishing or so, 14 or 15 finishing. Powers on the corner. Goldman gathers it in. Hopefully Goldman can improve. Oh, there it is. 4-1 victory. Away victory. So that's pretty good. Preseason or not, we can be proud of that result. I agree with that, Mr. Assistant Coach Tim Regan. He's been my assistant coach for quite a long time now. 9 years, I suppose. Let's see. Good performance. You look to hit the ground running. All right, everybody's happy with that. So there we go. Take a look at the stats real quick. Decent ratings. Not the greatest ratings I've ever seen. Actually, some pretty poor ratings. Oh, that's their ratings. So their ratings are pretty poor. Our ratings are mostly average. A few 7s. Ooh, we got some 8s in there. Washington and Zamora with over 8 rating. Cole with over 8 ratings. So our starters did very well. Our reserves did meh, average. But that's okay. Analysis here. We can take a look. Distance run. Look at that. Valenzuela, 16 interceptions and a half. That's pretty darn good. Van de Castile, 13. So pretty good performance all around. And now we are ready for our Champions League date with Sporting Kansas City. Can't wait. But that's for next time. So until then, until tomorrow, I guess, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.